Alright, this is gonna be a pretty messy video, including that I'm not doing any editing or anything, but the Tesla Tower just came out in TDS, and so much of these balance changes is hot garbage. Like, I don't know who designed these balance changes, but 90% of them are so garbage, I just needed to make a rant on this. I'm not gonna go over the game mode changes because I feel like a lot of them were deserved. I like the wording also here. It just doesn't even tell you what happens. It's just second phase has been completely changed to follow a set of pattern. Basically walks in on phase 2. I haven't actually played much of the update, but I'm a pretty good TDS player. I am now level 652, and that's gonna be my opinion. Wrong button. This is gonna be my opinion on a lot of these game changes. First of all, final act HP scaling going down. This is already scary. Means the meta got nerfed so bad they had to nerf the game mode so it's actually beatable. Barricade, health from 150 to 200. Fair enough. Airstrike damage from 100 to 200. Fair enough. Range flag, I don't know why this needed a nerf. Out of the 3 flags, it's the worst flag. And it's had to nerf it out of all of them. Blizzard Bomb, limit free, initial cooldown 10 seconds. Yeah, Blizzard Bomb does not deserve to be an epic. This is such a garbage consumable. I don't know why it's still a thing. Nuke damage increasing to 75k is actually huge, though. And Molten Monster kind of got nerfed. That kind of sucks. 150% defense. I think that's meant to protect him from, like, attacks that normally, like, clear path units or something because his HP is low now, but not making it up. I think they wanted to make sure that he doesn't kill bosses as much by nerfing his HP 20k from 100k. And then his defense increases so he can't get killed by, like, stuns or something. Paintballer. Now, the first few changes of this update log are good, so this actually gonna be some positive. Now, his placement footprint got turned down, and his cost got from 400 to 100. Also, max hit got to 8, like he was able to hit more than one enemy anyways. Like, yeah, he had piercing, but his AoE was non-existent. This is a good thing. It's letting Paintballer be like a spammable tower. It's not necessarily good. Like, Paintballer is not going to be good after this, probably. But it's cool they're giving the tower its own special, like, gimmick and stuff like that. Like, I love different towers having different gimmicks. A lot of them are underrated. Like, a lot of the towers just aren't used as much. Like, say, Biologist has a bunch of cool gimmicks. The Grim Skin sucks. Like, all of these have cool gimmicks. This one gives towers fireworks. This one applies toxic. This one knockbacks and burns. This one has its own missiles for when it needs to reload. Stuff like that. So I'm gonna go to this very fast. He's way cheaper now, but does less damage and has more range, actually. From 225 for level 1. That's very cheap. And personally, I like this. Like, yeah, I'll say his level 5 damage is actually pretty decent. 20. And I actually gave him normal splash radius, so he can hit more than like one enemy as a splash tower. I can't believe it. W Paintball rework. Demo Man, another good one. The first three are like good, and then it starts going downhill. Demo Man usually just made him cheaper, attack slower, but have more range and explosion radius. I mean, 3.5 to 4.75, and then like what at max 6. Very good, genuinely very good increase. It's a good splash tower. Yeah, sure, they nerfed damage slightly, like... Okay, that one's actually increased the damage, but, like... The damage is, like, from 50 to 49. But it has better fire rate and way better AoE, so it's actually a W buff. Soldier also got a pretty decent buff. He's just, overall, has more range. Pretty sure he's cheaper. Yeah, he's cheaper as the early game. And has bigger bursts. Overall W. Militant is where it starts going downhill. Now, Militant isn't exactly bad. Militant, another one I'm gonna go through very fast. He's been made cheaper. Now you can actually place him wave 1 without skill tree. and cheaper upgrades. But because of that, he's also gone slightly nerfed. Which actually, the cost decrease for these two updates went into level 2. Because these are 150 cheaper, and then there's one 150 more expensive. Now, he does give his fire rate and range actually slightly buffed because of that. But what I don't like is level 4. Now, it's cut in like 2/3 over the old price, but the damage is from 12 to 10, and the range is from 21 to 19. Now, this is the first part which I don't like about this rework. This whole update is trying to separate early and late game towers. So instead of being able to just like, I don't know, like old metas, Golden Soldier, Firework Technician, and that works for both early, mid-late game, stuff like that. Now they just want us, like, you can't place Excel on like wave 5, because they buffed his price by a ton. Necromancer. That's like 3 times, maybe 4 times the price. Oh my god, I keep misclicking the button. And that's like the first thing I don't like. And we're gonna get to this. This already nerfed late game because they want you to exclusively use him as early game. Another thing, Shotgunner. Very good speedrunning tower. Now, first thing I want to point out here is level 1 cost from 300 to 950. Although he does have like quadruple DPS now, but still. Oh, not actually because the bullet count went down, but both the damage and the fire rate are doubled. Bullet spread from 45 to 120 degrees. That's like, not only does he only shoot 6 pellets now, 5 out of these 6 pellets are not going at the enemy. They are going to like Antarctica. Just view and gone. This spread is so bad. Like, I have not tested it in game, yeah. So a lot of these opinions might change as I play more of the update. I want to like play a bunch of each tower that got 3 pounds. It's gonna take a while, so this is why I record the rant first. But 120 spread. This is so garbage. It's like, shotguns are actually like pretty far range weapons in real life. They're trying to make it like movie shotguns that can't fire to like anything that's like more than 1 feet. It's like, bro, I can't even describe this properly because it's so garbage. The butchered shotgunner, not gonna lie. His whole thing was a good speedrunner early game. Not early game anymore. Not speedrunner, and it might not even be functional with this much spread. Hunter, now Hunter, I can see what to do with Hunter. Instead of being just like a different sniper, which was actually the most cost efficient tower in beginner section. In the starter section. It's even more cost efficient than minigun, remember. It's like all of these towers, besides... Oh, I forgot Shotgunner got moved to starter towers. Like, even Shotgunner wasn't cost efficient like Hunter. He was extreme cost efficiency. That, for some reason, just... I have a lot of weird skins because I'm using Christmas themed ones for their Christmas lobby. Don't mind the weird skins like Boo Hunter, Default Paintball, or stuff like that. Default Slasher is another like weird one, but you know. Hunter, his whole thing was just a more cost efficient and better late game sniper. Which he did well. Now his job is just a rip-off ranger. We'll get to it soon, but the ranger also got some balance changes. Hunter, I'm not gonna hate what happened with Hunter. I actually kind of like it. It's like an in-between between sniper and ranger. His movement got decreased to 10. His price went up by a lot. First of all, from 200 to 1,000 coins to buy to begin with. And then placement price is like more than doubled. All the upgrades are more than doubled in cost. I mean, 800 to 2,850. Also got rid of his hidden detection to mimic ranger. And his, well, 4 damages from 120 to 222. With way better DPS, actually. And slightly bigger range. But the cost is diabolical, making him not cost effective anymore. Is he just mimicking Ranger now? He's like a knockoff Ranger for beginners. Which, personally, I kind of like. It's better than almost a 1-to-1 copy of Hunter. Kirk Boss. I'm not even gonna try to understand what's happening here. I'm just gonna read this real quick. This is so weird. Tommy Gun units. Spawn rate 50 to 35. Lifespan. Limit. Level 0 health from 100 to 175. Level 0 damage from 4 to 5. Level 0 range from 17 to 18. But then level 0 range from 12.5 to 14. It's so weird. Like level 1 damage from 10 to 6. Level 1 range from 18 to 20. Level 0 flying detection from disabled to enabled. Now I'm assuming the flying detection is where it switches from the goon to the Kirk boss himself. But this was so poorly put in there, like pistol goon units, Tommy goon units, and then it never says it switches back to Kirk boss. But what they did here is turn Kirk boss into a minigunner of sorts. Instead of being a scout that transformed into a minigunner as you upgrade him, he kind of starts out now as a more expensive mid-game tower. Like, his placement is more than minigunner now, actually, for pretty good stats that they buffed him to, but the Crook Boss went from a scout that's like very cheap and you can use him, and then upgrade him and he becomes like third level is where it gets expensive, but also becomes a minigunner. Now it's just straight up like a minigunner type tower, or it's a mid-game tower that does pretty good damage, but also costs pretty decently, so you gotta wait till like wave 5 or something to place it. Assuming you just started saving from it from wave 1, you know? And if you're like farming, you're probably gonna place it by like wave 10, 15. Assassin. Now this one is one of the few ones I actually like here. What they did is they both nerfed Assassin and made his gimmick better. And what I mean by that is, if you notice how the damage went from 12 to 6, but then whirlwind damage went from 6 to 12, they nerfed his main attack, but also made his gimmick better. Where his gimmick was using old Gladiator's whirlwind attack and then Shredder's, like not Slasher, like the old Shredder's knife throw combined into one tower, the two scrap mechanics. And this is pretty peak. It's nerfing him at the same time as it is just making him more centered around his gimmick, which I love. I love when towers have certain gimmicks. That spices up the game so much. Pyromancer is a separate rant here, because there's been a tower that broke the meta recently, called Spotlight Technician, and this thing broke the meta so hard that people started doing solo hardcore, solo Polder Wastelands 2, solo Badlands, solo everything. So, what the devs did, everyone thought this thing is gonna get nerfed to the ground, because this thing is like broken meta OP right now. What the devs did is, instead of nerfing the broken tower, they decided to just buff the other burning towers to make the Spotlight seem garbage. And now this is going to be more noticeable when we get to Golden Pyromancer, but the Pyro buff is insane. And I mean like insane buff. If you go to like level 5, burn damage from 8 to 35. It's like, yeah, the tick went up to 1, but that still would be like 16. And this one's 35. Which is way better. Also, more defense mode, more burn time. That's like 350 burn damage for each enemy. That's like, yes, it does not hit the whole map, but when we get to Gold Pyro, you're gonna notice something. Ace Pilot, I'm not gonna say much for Ace Pilot, that's just normal rebalancing. This is one of the few rebalances that we were actually planning to do, I feel like, that's like making sense. And stuff like this with Hunter and stuff like this of Shotgunner and Motant, I feel like a lot of that stuff is just them saying they're gonna have the biggest rebalance yet, so they have to rework towers that do not need a rework. Medic is another example. Limit to 4, and then decrease shield charge. Now, they did give the damage buff slightly more thing, but this is still a nerf. This is just a medic nerf for like, no reason really. Medic was not like a top tier support, but spoilers, they did nerf the top tier support, so I guess it makes sense they want to nerf medic too. Farm, now this is a hard one, and I'm not gonna try to describe this immediately. Gonna click that. But basically, they amplified the only problem Farm already had. This being the fact that in the early game, you're gonna have like no money, you're gonna be spending everything on Farm, And when it hits late game, when everything's already maxed out, like say like wave 35, you're gonna have way too much cash that you have nothing to deal with or to do with. What they did is make farm upgrades more expensive, but when you get all of them, because you have 12 limit now, you can get more money per wave total. At least I think that's what happened. I haven't actually done the calculations if 8,500, so it's gonna be more. It looks like it would be more money acquired, but only when you have all 12 maxed, and then make the income less so it's harder to max them. So what's gonna happen is, a lot of people who don't know how to like defend and farm at the same time are just gonna end up farming till wave 35 out of 40, or in some modes like casual, maybe even farming the whole game, and by the time you're done farming, the game is either already ended, or you just have nothing to spend the money on, because you have like 3 turrets that you can max out and that's it. Which is probably like anti-beginner friendly, I feel like, because unless you're like very, very good at managing both farm and defense at the same time, this is just gonna make it harder for you. This is not a buff, this is a nerf. Not necessarily like, yes, it is gonna be harder to also farm and defend at the same time because you get less money at the early levels, which you typically rely on as you're defending at the same time. Electro Shocker, this thing got butchered. Like, look at this. Let me show you. Max hit 1. Scroll down, max hits from 4 to 1. Shock time 0. Defense mode 0. Even like these higher ones, that's like max hits 6 to 2. Shock time from 1 seconds to 0.1 seconds. This thing went from 1.25 seconds to 0.15 seconds. And you know why they butchered the Electro Shocker so badly? Like, one of the best advanced tier towers, like, support stalling wise. Like, every strat used them. So good. They butchered him. And you know what they butchered him for? Tesla. And, like, I thought they're gonna stick to, like, level 1, 2, 3 Electro Shocker, where it has, like, a faster fire rate of smaller stuns, like, shock time 0.3. No, they just removed it. And even on later levels, they just butchered it. 0.1. So you're telling me, like, a max Electro Shocker is gonna stun for 0.15. That's, like... That's, like, worse than level 0 Electro Shocker was before. That's how bad this is. And Tesla is not even good. Like, now it has a smite mechanic. I haven't personally played too much with Tesla. I actually spent all my points on skill tree, so I don't even have enough for Tesla right now. But what I'm assuming is gonna be a certain damage bar that fills up, and then, yeah, damage threshold right here. But even with this smite, 2 placement limit. 2 placement limits are already garbage, first of all. Like, the only other tower with 2 placement limit is Elf Camp, and Elf Camp has a good reason. It hits the whole map, and it's like the most cost-efficient tower in the whole game. Also, having more than 2 would probably lag the game. Kind of how like old classic military base did. Anyways, this thing is garbage. It has 0.4 shock time, like outside of the stupid smite thing, which I'm assuming is not even gonna like hit much. Yeah, it's gonna be like a spotlight type thing. So if you want to hit like 7 enemies with like a 1 something second stun, you can't do it anymore because the stuns are 0.4 seconds. Yes, max hit is still, but 0.4 seconds, 1.2 fire rate. This is so garbage. It's like 33% uptime. This is worse than old Electro Shocker was. Like, way worse. This isn't even slightly worse. This, compared to this, like, this is like comparing normal Scout, which is the Tesla Tower, to Golden Scout, which is pre-rework Electro Shocker. They nerfed Electro Shocker so bad to make a Tesla Tower seem so good when it's garbage. They ruined Electro Shocker just to release a garbage stun tower. Our best stun support right now is probably gonna be Warden. Warden of all things. This is really pissing me off because... Yes, Electro Shocker needed a rebalance if you're gonna have Tesla, but you could have just made him a high fire rate, small stun damager. Not remove electricity from Electroshocker to give us a just knockoff Electroshocker that's worse and more expensive with 2 placement movement. Mortar. Mortar is another good one. I feel like they actually knew what they were doing here. Lowered the placement limit from 5 to 3, but made the upgrades expensive and do more damage. It's worse in the early game now, but it's better in the late game, which is kind of what you want to do with Mortar anyways. It's also what the devs are pushing for. They want every tower to be either exclusively early game or exclusively late game. And you notice every balance change, that's like a pretty garbage balance change, is either just fully butchering a tower like this, which actually does make him extremely early game because he just butchered to non-existence. Or making a game super late game like this, we're gonna get more to like hardcore towers down the list, and it's gonna be way more noticeable. Turret, this is... I don't know who made this balance change, but the guy who made this balance change needs a raise. It's just so stupid, but it's so funny. Now, Mercenary Base, I'm not gonna go through all of this. I mean, look at that. That's a ton of stuff. But all you need to know is Mercenary units spawn faster, but they're all weaker, and they have shorter lifespans. Basically, overall, it's a nerf. Also, less damage buff. Now this is, yeah, noticeable with this. Let's just see this. From 250 to 150, or 240, then 240 to 150. 700 to 600, stuff like that. Riot card, like spawn rate from 50 to 40, but the lifespan is from 240 to 75, and HP is from 1000 to 800. Personally, nerf, is it deserved? Probably yes. Mercenary Base has been the meta DPS option for a while, so I can see this happening. Cowboy is another pretty badly nerfed one. What they did to Cowboy is try to make him a rapid fire scout that gives money. And then suddenly, when you want to max him, he just goes from like 450 to like 8,000, which Cowboy kind of already did that, but the scaling is way more aggressive now. Like, it goes from like 450 to 450 to 2,400 to 4,600 to 8,500. And the thing with this is, it's not even worth it anymore. Like, yeah, they buffed the damage slightly, but they cut the placement limit in basically half, which makes Cowboy a really bad late game option. That's again what they did is make Cowboy a better early game, but then it's just non-usable in the late game. The devs are just kind of trying to force players into having one early game slot and then late game slots separately instead of having something like, let's say, Engineer that can merge both early and late game, which it still kind of can't. Brawler could merge early and late game way better back then. Even like Golden Cowboy, when you had 10 max Golden Cowboys, it still worked as like 10 minigunners early. So it could still be pretty good sub DPS from your early game. Next up we have Commander. Now, I don't even know what to say about this. They really just, like, they made him cheaper, and then they changed his damage. Like, okay, first of all, flying and hidden detection removed is something that I find lame. There's probably a different person who originally made the commander who's balanced this, or like none of the OG dev team. There's probably like a new hire, because the whole point of him having every like these two detections is he's the commander. He can spot hidden enemies and stuff like that. But these people aren't looking at just the tower gimmicks. Like, yes, he's the big guy here. He knows flying and hidden enemies because he's the literal commander. Like you're telling me, like, a soldier. It doesn't show here, but soldier can see flying enemies, but the commander, who's like way better, can't. This just ruins a tower gimmick for no reason. Like, this is like a cool, neat detail. Let's be real. Nobody actually uses commander to kill flying enemies. Most people forget he can even do damage. Which, during the Call to Arms, he does. Oh yeah, it is Call to Arms. A lot of people been calling it Call of Arms, like COA instead of CTA. Which has been weird to me, because like, I clearly remembered it being CTA, and it is CTA. Now, CTA nerfs is very bad, but they did make him have more range and cheaper. So this is more like a rebalance. There's not exactly nerf or buff. I guess it's like a worse late game, but better early game because it's cheaper. But also, like, you wouldn't use Commander for early game. So it's very weird. Yeah, they doubled his damage for some reason. Like, why would you increase his damage but removing the detections? This whole thing is meant to be like, he has the detections because he's the leader, but he doesn't necessarily need them to use Commander because he's not even an attacking tower, really. So I don't know why they're trying to make him an attacking tower by nerfing his buffs. I really don't like this. So they're going off the gimmick. They're just trying to make every tower the same, just scout with different stats is what they're trying to do. They're trying to make every tower a scout of different stats, which I really don't like. I like towers having gimmicks. This guy can shoot 4 projectiles. This thing has different types of attacks. This is a spawner unit. This one spawns a bunch of different military people that you can combo. He gives buffs. This one flies above the battlefield instead of actually being there. This one's just a first person tower. This one has a special thing where it can plant stuff on the road to slow enemies down and actually synergizes with farm, which I really love. This guy can either freeze or burn, applies bleed and also critical hits. We'll talk about him later. Applies toxic to enemies, has a bunch of different bombs that all apply different debuffs that you can switch based on what you like. This one's like a very OP damage source, but it overcharges over time and needs to cool down. This one, very underrated tower, probably the best hardcore tower for like over a year, or it's been. And a lot of people kept asking for buffs. Ever since he came out, I would see him being mid. Then, the first ever Necromancer buff after he came out, he was already peak. He was on a level, if not better than all the other hardcore towers. You know how much Accelerator had? This guy had 300 DPS. This guy, not even him, just like his spawns alone could have 900 if you spam him right. Which, yeah, he does have. They changed Accelerator's placement limit, but it was used to be like 8 and then 3, so that like makes sense because this guy has 3 times, so it'd be like 9 Accelerators worth, but have to manually manage him. So it'd be slightly better, but not really. Skill Tree came out, unintentionally buffing Necromancer, making him the best hardcore tower, and people still complain about him being garbage, which he isn't, but that's a separate rant I might do someday. Executioner has an axe that bounces between enemies. It's like all of these guys, different arrow tips. This one just has a custom debuff for him. All of the towers have different gimmicks, and I really hate the fact this update is trying to sort these things into 2 categories: Scout and buffed up Scout, but very expensive. Everything is gonna be either Scout or just like Accelerator, and that's it. It's like they only have 2 categories: Scout or Ranger. It's like they're trying to sort every tower to just be a plain stats and cost, which I really hate about this bounce change. It ruins the game, also makes it less beginner friendly because a lot of the modes has been buffed, but also a lot of like the early game options like Militant they had to actually deal with the buffed modes got nerfed. So now new players can't do anything without having like a friend who has like Accelerator and stuff. DJ. DJ got slight nerf, which yeah, I could see it. As sad as it is, it's very sad that DJ got a nerf, but also he is the best support tower in the game. Minigunner level 4 just got nerfed slightly, and you're gonna see why later. This is like so unneeded, just 17 to 15 damage, but it's slightly cheaper. And you're gonna see why later. This such a lazy thing. Ranger, another like somewhat fair rebalance. I'd say he got nerfed overall, but yeah, it is what it is. Pursuit got buffed, but at what cost? Now this has like the most stuff out of any tower rework here, so I'm not gonna scroll through all this. But basically, what Pursuit has is now this one I actually love the most in this update. Making just the tower that's whole gimmick is just Ace Pilot, but you can choose where it is. Why is the Ace Pilot upside down? Now this was a pretty lame gimmick, but now Pursuit has a very small range, 6 as you may have noticed. That's like less than a melee tower. But its movability got cooldown reduced to 10 seconds instead of 20. And its patrol area also got shrunk to like half the size. So what this is kind of like Gatling, where you gotta manually aim it every like few seconds, where you gotta manually keep it at the enemies. Yes, does it make Pursuit annoying to use? Yes, but does it give it a cool gimmick? Yes. They also buff Pursuit, so it's actually worth like all the effort you put into it instead of just like swapping to like Engineer or something for the DPS. And I love this gimmick. It's like a manual control. It's kind of like Gatling, but you don't have to aim. Instead, you just gotta constantly move it instead of like aiming stuff in first person. It's like a third person Gatling, really. And it's very cool. And you can have the bottom path that basically makes movement less needed by adding more range, but kind of gets sort of all the buffs it got in the rework. So it just kind of gives you the option to use pre-reworked if you're not good at the game, which I love this gimmick. This Pursuit is probably the best balance change we had so far. Golden Scout, again, just lowering level 4 damage and also decreasing the price. They're just trying to, yeah, level 3 cost less, but less damage. Level 4 cost less, but less damage. Again, I just said they're just trying to make everything into either late or early game. Golden Soldier is so unneeded. This just here to fill spot. It's like, yes, they lower the bursts in half, but they double the damage. I guess also it's meant to like not synergize as well with Firework now, but really just here to fill space. It's like they're trying to make it seem reworked without actually reworking it. Look at this burst count from 4 to 2. But then the damage, if we can find damage. It's like, okay, it's actually kind of a nerf. Damage from 10 to 12. Yeah. Slight nerf, but they really just did too much here. It's basically like a turret warf of thing where it's just like lower DPS, but they did a bunch of stuff here. Golden Pyromancer. Now I said we'll get to this, and we will get to this. Because the amount of just power creep this has over Spotlight. Instead of just nerfing Spotlight, because it was clearly too OP over Tower, they made Golden Pyromancer so busted that there's just no point in using Spotlight anymore. Okay, let me show you this real quick at the bottom. Just I got a lot of cost efficiency too by having like more range and damage for about the same price and being cheaper sometimes. Level 5 got more expensive though. It's like it got cheaper early game, but then more expensive late game. Actually kind of peak that they're not making it like exclusively later early game. That's like one of the few cases where they don't do that in this rework. But it's so broken. Okay, look at this. First of all, damage from 8 to 10 or 8 to 12, which 8 to 40 burn damage with one tick, which, yeah, if it was 20 burn time with like 8, okay, so look at this. So if you have like 8 tick damage, that's like 16 a second for 20 seconds, that would do like 320 damage total, which is less than the current Pyromancer that I just reworked. But this is just diabolical. So 40 damage a second for 360 seconds. That's 14k damage by the time it runs out. 14.5k damage. Now is it gonna run out? Probably not. They're probably gonna reach the end of your base or die before it runs out. But this power creeps Spotlight so much. So not only does this defense mode annoy Spotlight, which yes, you can argue Spotlight has Hidden Reveal and Confusion, which do make it better in some cases. Mainly when your defense doesn't have hidden detection, but like, you would think it's balanced to just give Pyromancer like 15k damage to everything it hits with 12 pierce and 15 range. Just because. Because you can. Also, if it hits him at least once, it's also gonna do at least, just like, at least one tick of damage, so it's not really gonna matter much. If you add 12 to like 14.5 thousand, it's still 14.5 thousand. Like, it doesn't change the decimal even, but yeah, if there's like a single boss that it keeps firing at for the entirety of the 15 range, you can probably go to like 15.6 thousand or something with the burn. But it's like not really matters. The amount of busted this is so insane. Like, it's instead of nerfing the clearly OP tower, they just kept it the same and then made another tower more OP than it. And you wanna hear the funny part? Another weaker tower that was another like power creep, but not as good as Spotlight. Yeah, they nerfed this. We'll get to it later. Warlock nerf was probably not deserved, I feel like, but we'll get to it when we get to it. Golden Croak Boss is the same exact thing as normal Croak Boss, where he's more expensive but does more damage now. I go 20 to 38, but instead of 30, it's 35k. Mostly just the placement. Golden Cowboy has not as bad stats as normal Cowboy. Like, normal Cowboy is just unusable now. Normal Cowboy is so garbage you can't even use him anymore. Golden Cowboy is actually kind of good because with its low fire rate, like instead of being 0.6.35, you can actually get quite a lot of money. Also, it has hidden detection level 2 now, which has slightly decreased income, but its fire rate has gone down so much that it's actually good. Like, and the damage going down actually lets it just get more money faster from the enemies because it gets more shots in before killing something. Now, this is good early game, but then it's kind of butchered late game. Like, it's really just not worth late game. Made it more expensive, but it's probably weaker than 10 old Golden Cowboys. This this is another example of making a tower very good at one side of the job, and then you just need another tower for late game, otherwise you're gonna die. Because Golden Cowboy alone can't do nothing late game anymore. Like, back then you could use him, like, in Polluted or something, or in solo runs, and he'd carry you to, like, wave 30, and then you just get XLs or something of the amount of cash you had. Now you don't. You just don't now. Now if you're, like, past wave 10 with only Golden Cowboys, you're dead. Like, send wave 20 against, like, 6 max Golden Cowboys, you're dead. Assuming it's, like, Frost or Fallen mode, that is. Golden Minigunner. Now, this is what I said about Minigunner earlier. A lot of these first changes seem like they're just cheaper but weaker versions of the minigunner. You know this leading up to? Well, 4 damage. 17. And cost to like 18k. Which, if you're wondering, just let me give you a reminder. This one costed 17k, it went to 15k, 17 damage to 15 damage. So yes, what they did is turn nerf normal minigunner to turn golden minigunner into pre-rework normal minigunner. Now that's only about level 4. Like, these levels, this one's slightly more expensive. Normal was like 1,850 and had 0.4 rave of time too. Also 2 damage, also like this much range. But the level 1 cost for normal minigunner was 400, now it's 250 with the golden version. But the whole point is just like it's slightly better at early levels, and then it's just the same exact thing as normal minigunner. They nerfed normal minigunner to make golden minigunner normal minigunner. That's how desperate they are for ideas. TDS, I would rather just take 30 tower reworks than 40, but half of them are so lazy like this. Like, what's the point in that? Or the turret one. The turret one's also just another, they just added one range and one level and coded a day just to add like an extra number in their rework count. Like, you said it's gonna be the biggest rework thing here, but we don't really need that if the reworks are gonna be so lazy and useless. Brawler. What it is with Brawler is make him weaker overall, but also cheaper and more spammable with 10 max Brawlers. Basically, another one of those things where a tower that worked both as early and then as a late game on wave 50. Carried me on my hardcore solo, actually. I have soloed hardcore on both Night Station and Unknown Garden. 6 Brawlers were good enough to get me from first wave up. I had a pursuit for flying enemies and a lead. But besides that, they're really just good enough to get me from wave 1 to like wave 40 of hardcore by themselves. And this, they're kind of trying to fix that. They're trying to make them only exclusively early game. Yeah, they're more spammable and stuff, so they're easier to use early game. You just spam them everywhere. They're cheaper, they're more spammable, but they also do less damage. But when you max them out, they're not going to do as much. The one thing I like is knockback force increase, so they're a better stall now that Electro Shocker is gone. Yeah, cut damage almost in half. normal damage is still pretty good. I feel like this one is usable in the late game purely because of how good Brawler was to begin with. He was very underrated personally. I'm not gonna say he's like a good speedrunner tower, but he's a very good tower for early game. Because he could be a good late game sub DPS. It's one of the few towers, kind of like Engineer, that you can use in Wave 1, and also use on the final boss, and it's gonna be very effective in both cases. Brawler is so good, they couldn't throw him too much of the rework, but it still kind of shows that they're trying to turn him into more. Necromancer? Now, my comment about Necromancer being underrated back then, yeah, they reworked him again, and he's even more OP now. His level 2, now of course he costs a lot more. Like, his level 2 costed like 6,000 maybe combined total between all the levels to get. It's like 1,600 for placement and another 1,000 to upgrade to 01, and then it's 4,000 to upgrade to 02. So it's like 6.5k basically, rounded up. Now it's like, let me find the cost. 4.2 thousand, and then it's another like 4k, so that's like 8k. And then there's like 11, so that's like almost 20k, right? But he does have better skeletons now. His level 2 went from spawning level 90 skeleton at best to 1,500 HP. Yeah, I'm not even kidding about this. Now, it kind of sucks that they kept his max over the same, including how much more expensive he got. Like, his whole thing was he was pretty cheap. He was like under 2,000. He was like 1,500 basically rounded up. And then the first upgrade's like 1,000, the next one was 4k. So he's able to be used as like somewhat bad early, but technically still early. Never used Necromancer as early game, just so you know. And then also kind of mid game, you could just like spam free level 2 ones and then farm. It wasn't the best mid game, but it worked as support. If your like, teammates or something did the mid game, you could just still do that. Wouldn't cost you much, but wouldn't provide too much. Kind of it's like low risk, low reward kind of situation. Um, Now he's way more reliant on mid game. Not late game or early game, because it's like impossible to get like 20k money in the early game. But there's the thing, he didn't actually get any buffs for late game, he only got buffs for levels 1 through 3. The only thing that happened to Executioner Skeleton is another example of them just trying to add more stuff in the update log, is doubling Executioner Skeleton damage, but also increasing his fire rate by 2. So instead of doing like 50 DPS, it's still gonna do 50 DPS. I know it's not 50 because it's like 3 seconds, but I'm just turning this down. So instead of doing 100 damage in 6 seconds, it's gonna do 100 damage in 6 seconds. It's just like different. Just like another example of TDS being lazy and trying to push more reworks without actually thinking about them, which makes this update so bad in my opinion. Which I'm not really a fan. Like, you're gonna make him cost like 100k total instead of like 50k total. So I would expect the max level to be kind of buffed. Including that they straight up did nothing for max level and only changed levels 1 through 3 early, skeleton wise. I mean, yeah, they did like extra 10 damage on max level and extra 4 range, but it's just not worth it. Like, where'd the 20k go? This just not worth it on max level. The only difference between pre-revoked Necromancer and current Necromancer on max level is it costs like 20 and then 25. It costs like, I don't know, 35/40 extra thousand to max out and gets plus 10 damage. It's so bad. Now, as a Necromancer main, I always bring Necromancer in my loadout. It's actually going to be kind of harder to use him now, which I do like, but not. Because when it's hard to use a tower, people complain about it being bad when it's actually meta just because they can't use it right. Which means, yes, there's going to be more Necromancer buffs. But also the Maxwell got done so dirty, it kind of needs a buff. And I'm the guy who always glazes Necromancer. So if I'm like the guy who always says Necromancer is like better than XL and Engineer, like pre this rework, if I'm saying he needs a buff right now, he needs a buff right now. Accelerator, stun immunity is so good. Accelerator's biggest weakness, the reason he was like worse than turret in a lot of strats and stuff like that, stuns. He did so bad with stuns. Like he gets stunned once and he's just out for like the whole game basically. Has to charge up his gun after getting stunned, then charge it down, then charge it up again, charge it down, and finally charge up and finally start shooting. And that was so garbage because in that time he could have just get stunned again and he was just in a soup of charge it up, charge it down, charge it up, charge it down. Overheat amount got increased by a lot to compensate for his like stun immunity now, which I do like. Now I don't really like the fact that his damage got decreased. Like his cost got basically doubled, but his damage got halved. Which the stun immunity is a very good thing. Yes, the stun immunity is a big buff, but also doubling his cost while having his damage really still makes it not good. Like turret is still better than Excel is because first of all, 5k you can place turret on like wave 10 to kill the wave 10 boss, assuming you're like farming. Or maybe not because farm got nerfed in the early game, but you know. Maybe like wave 15, they send something at you. And you have to place turret. There we go. Decent DPS, decently priced, and you have it. Compared to like Excel for like 7,000. And turret, yeah, does a bit less, but I guess it costs less. But turret on Maxwell is probably gonna have more DPS than Excel does right now. Especially with 5 placement on it now. It used to be 8, now it's 5. Turret did like less max DPS than Excel, but it was like not struggling with stuns. So people use turret over Excel. Now people are just gonna use turret over Excel because of DPS. Turret probably has more DPS than Excel does now. And the devs, let me guess, instead of just fixing Excel and Necromancer and all the stuff they did badly, they either gonna push out another update that's gonna be like massive rebalancing 2.0 that's just gonna undo everything bad they did. Or B, they're also gonna nerf turret, and then they're also gonna nerf Gatling, and then they're also gonna nerf, I don't know. There's not much that didn't get reworked this update. So just like turret Gatling. That's like 5k options that do like damage, but also not. It's gonna nerf turret, nerf Gatling. Gatling already sucks, but who cares, right? And it's just gonna be like, it's like they're trying to make every tower in a game weaker. Besides like Pursuit, but Pursuit's like micromanagement. Pursuit and Necromancer are the only ones who haven't really gone weaker here, but they require way more management. Or at least Pursuit does. Necromancer's like as he was before. He was already requiring a lot. It's like all the good stuff, Mercenary Base, Accelerator, all this stuff, Gold Minigun, they're just nerfing all of it. I feel like they're trying to go in the meta of the bosses are like 2 million HP, 2.5 million the Riftwalker was. So they're trying to go from having giant HP bosses to like 1 million HP, but all the towers are garbage. So it's kind of like lead like what happened in the Gladiators event, where the boss for this guy only had like 150k HP, but it was still one of the hardest bosses in TDS because no towers did this much damage back then. Engineer. Now, I like what they did to Engineer actually here. Engineer is another one of those actual reworks they probably had planned. Like those like rebalances they had planned before this update. Because it's such an outlier by how good it is. Like, they're just overall buffing Engineer while also not buffing her at the same time. It's like it's decreasing the max units for this role, but also giving her minigun sentries and rifle sentries away early. Also giving rifle sentries hidden detection, where she used to have. She needed to get level 5 for hidden detection. Now she can get him as well as level 2. Which is very good. They're making Engineer more versatile while also keeping the late game option for it by buffing like level 5 Engineer damage herself and stuff. And keeping War Machine Sentry the same OP without her like changing anything. This is peak. This is like an actually good rework. Or rebalance, I guess. That they probably had planned since like Final Act or Frost Mode that they didn't just emergency push out for the update. So that's why it's so good. Kind of how the Pursuit is. Alright, let me get back there. I shouldn't have tabbed out. Hacker, kind of like what they did to Hacker, not really. Now Hacker just doesn't do damage until later levels. But now it's also cheaper because it doesn't do damage. It's like a pure support tower, which, yeah, I guess kind of makes it easier to understand that Hacker is supposed to be a support tower and not a damage dealer for like newer people. But also like they nerfed the unit conversion, which I'm not really a fan of. Unit conversion is like the only thing I liked about Hacker. It's probably personal bias. I don't see anything wrong with making it cheaper but not do damage. Just shows like people who just bought Hacker something that it's a support tower and not a damage dealer, like some people might think. I also kind of don't like how they nerfed max level. I never found Hacker that good. Maybe she is. No, I kind of swept in on a Hacker. I used her when she just came out because I just bought Hacker. But after a bit, she just felt not needed. I couldn't really think of much I would need from Hacker. I'd better just have more DPS or something than clone my existing ones, because it's cheaper to place one XL permanently than clone a Necromancer like 3 times. Which, yeah, maybe. I don't know. I never really used Hacker too much. Now, Gladiator. I got so hyped when I first saw this. Like, I was going to Hacker and I see Gladiator. Oh my god. And it got buffed. And it's like, oh my god. From 3560, this has to be good. Also, I just tell you this. What do you mean fire rate buff, row 0? Does he have that ability on start now? I might test this later. Because he only gets the ability on row 3, so I don't know why would they buff him on row 0. Maybe that's just like start ability row 0, not gladiator row 0. Parry cooldown from 5 seconds to 1.25, which is a good one. But the rest of this is so garbage. They grabbed the gimmick of a tower that was basically... Okay, so here we have a cheap early game tower that's gonna cost like 300 to place. It's gonna do like 2 damage. It's gonna be cheap. It's gonna cost like 6 or 8,000 to max out, like to place and max out fully. But it's also gonna do like low damage, but very fast, and it's gonna have like piercing. And then we're gonna have like a more expensive one. It costs more, like a whole 800. I think it was 1,000 back when I mainly used Warden. And then it's like gonna do more damage, and it's gonna be single target, and it's gonna be like stunning, but it's gonna be more expensive, stuff like that. And then Slasher, which is another just, oh, I'm gonna be very expensive, and I'm gonna do like single target damage, but I'm gonna do a ton of damage, so it's like a boss killer melee tower that's super expensive. Well, this guy was like a crowd control cheap. I like this. It was like the opposite of Slasher, basically in the episode of Warden. And if you scroll down, you may notice cost from 6,000 to 13.9, from 2,000 to 6,000. Pierce, yeah, the Pierce is kind of good, but like, it used to be infinite Pierce, so that doesn't really patch him. Damage from 40 to 177. Fire rate is 1. They just turned Gladiator into a reskin Slasher. Like, I didn't like the Slasher rework because it just got rid of a gimmick and instead just turned him into a glorified Warden. Yeah, they got rid of Gladiator's gimmick and turned him into a glorified Warden. Now, this is something I hate. This is probably something that's made by non-TDS player who just, like, got hired yesterday and decided to do emergency balancing patch because TDS wants to have a giant update. Nobody asked for this. Like, we don't want 3 glorified... If you count Switcher, technically 4 glorified Wardens. I want each melee tower to have its own gimmick. Kind of how, like, Assassin stole old Shredder's knife throwing and then old deleted Gladiator spin slash. Assassin is peak, like, niche tower that has a lot of gimmicks. These all were so garbage. Like, Warden was so good because we only had we had 2 other melee towers, which were Gladiator and back then it was called Shredder. Gladiator was a fast attacking, low damage tower for crowd control, for infinite Pierce. And Shredder was also a fast attacking, low damage tower, but instead of having like crowd control Pierce, it did single target, but it threw knives when enemies are out of range. So this being an expensive heavy attacker melee made it very good. Same with Sweatshirt. They just butchered. We just have like 4 glorified Wardens now. Because first they removed Slasher's gimmick, then they removed Gladiator gimmick. I wouldn't say they removed Sweatshirt's gimmick. That's like probably the only good melee rework they've had. Executioner is a good buff. Executioner, straight up the only way, straight to the point buff. More damage, cheaper, better limit. That's it. This is so stupid. Not only did they give Frost Blaster, 14 placement limit. Oh, I thought the brawler icon was highlighted. No, it's just this. 14 placement limit. Frost Blaster. If you couldn't tell by its name, Frost Blaster, it's meant to freeze enemies. So tell me, Why did they remove Frost Blast or Freezing? Not even on max. Not even like kind of did with Sledger where it freezes on you after a certain level instead of just like immediately off the bat. They just removed this freezing. The best they can do now is, guess what? The best they can do is 35% slowness on hit. And that's like max. If it's like low free, it's only gonna do 5% slowness on hit. So you grabbed an already pretty mid tower and butchered it for no reason besides adding an extra number in your tower's rework category. This is one of the worst things this update has done for no reason. You just got rid of Frost Blasters freezing. The freezer doesn't freeze, it doesn't make sense. Not only did you remove this guy stalling, you also removed this guy stalling. It's like TDS is just trying to remove stalling in its game completely. So you just threw out raw the TDS is trying to turn it from strategizing, where you get some cool early game towers that transform into mid game, and then you can have something mid game that transforms into late game at the same time, and you have cool gimmicks. They're trying to turn every tower into a scout with nothing on it. We just have a cheap scout. Then, like wave 20 hits, you sell all the cheap scout, you place expensive scout that do more damage. And you're just trying to do that with every tower, and it pisses me off so bad. It genuinely pisses me off so bad. There was no need for this. You just removed a freezing tower's freezing, and then Electroshocker's electroshocking, just to make it so instead of like strategizing and making stuns and adding supports in our loadout, we'll just grab like this as our DPS, or I guess not even DPS anymore. We just grab like this and just start the round. Like, I hate it so much. They're just trying to make every tower either be cheap, weak, or expensive, strong, with no gimmicks whatsoever. Why? What was this for? Toxic Gunner, this one is just straight up another, oh my god, we only have 30 towers when we're meant to rework 40, which just like change one number somewhere to make it seem like we're doing stuff. Warlock. Warlock is the last on this list, and not gonna lie, I never saw the point in nerfing Warlock. I knew Warlock's gonna get nerfed. It's actually a fair nerf too. Like looking at some stuff like what they did with Frost Blaster, just nerfing the stats slightly, it's not too bad. Like most of the nerfs and stuff, they just remove the gimmick entirely, like Gladiator or Frost Blaster or Electroshocker. They just like got rid of their gimmicks completely and turned them into a scout or something. But this one just got stat reduction, which is actually somehow a good change compared to the rest of the stuff they did in this update, even though it's an unneeded nerf. Now, you can fight me on this. I never, like, mained Warlock as my DPS, so maybe I just never got it. Kind of like the Hacker. I used them for a bit on release, and that's it. But, like, I always found Warlock as just, yeah, it's Accelerator, but it can knock back, but it has half the placement limit, so it's not really that much better than Accelerator. Like, it does about the same DPS, but you can only place half as many, so it's, like, worse for stuff like Puda Wastelands. But it's also, like, knocks stuff back, so it's not exactly worse. It's just, like, on level. Like, I never found it too OP. The knockback's not that game-breaking, and the placement limit makes it pretty weak. Including, you can also not hit enemies that are, like, outside of its sword range when it's hitting something with a sword. So if, like, a quick runs by, and then there's a slow, heavy enemy in its range, starts hitting the slow enemy with the sword, and just ignores the quick because it kills you. So it already had its flaws. I never really saw the point on nerfing this, but the amount of people who called Warlock OP made me think that devs are gonna nerf it just to like calm the community down, which they did. I'm fine with this. I haven't mained Warlock anyways, really. It doesn't seem like there's too much changes. Bleed stacks from 6 to 5. Melee damage. Okay, maybe there were some changes. 20 from the. Okay, yeah. This update is hot garbage. Like, if I go through every tower here, just speedrun, this just categorized it untouched. Actually, cool update, pretty decent both, but I was probably just categorizing it. Categorized it, but on mine or normal one. but I mind the buff because it helped beginners. This one just useless filler buff, completely ruined shotgunner. Another just categorized him. Another categorized him. No changes. Nerf. That's right. That's fine. Categorized him. This one's just OP now, just to make Spotlight not usable instead of ruining the Spotlight. They just made another tower that's better than it. Slight changes. Nerf. Nerf. Useless. Removed gimmick. No changes. No changes. No changes. Rebalance. One of the few actual rebalances here. Nothing. Just straight up nerf. Straight up nerf. Nothing. Straight up nerf. Also straight up nerf. Straight up nerf. Straight up Vorce Electro Shocker. Straight up nerf. Straight up just normal minigunner. Pre-nerf. Straight up nerf. Cool gimmick. Nothing. Straight up categorized him. Categorized him. Categorized him. Actually, a decent rebalance. Also kinda good rebalance. Nothing, 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 nothing. Okay, all of these are just nothing. Then just filler nerf to fill up the update log. Categorized him. Butchered him and removed the gimmick for no reason. And just slight nerf. This update is so garbage.